Chaim, Rabbi Shapiro. One second. Are you in the sukkah? It's a very nice sukkah with the svarim and everything. Wait, I don't hear you. Let's click it on you.
I am not in the sukkah. If you want, I can go to the sukkah.
I would love you. We would love for you to go to the sukkah.
I can go to the sukkah.
I was already getting excited. You have svarim in your sukkah, like a nice.
I can go to my sukkah. No. Now I'm entering my sukkah, my schach.
Wow.
Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem Shalom. Let's begin. The Zeit is Zman Katzer Malcham Merubah, where wir sich zusammenkommen. We're here to get up some inspiration for the Yom HaKadosh, for the holy day of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, the Rebbe's Tag, und wir davon haben Chayes, wir davon haben inspiration, wie man sagt. So I ask Rabbi Shapiro, Chaim Shapiro, to start off, and we're going to have some other Chashuv Yidden, Rabbi Alter Tenenbaum, Nata Shemter, Rabbi Yossi Harlig, Rabbi Yossi Chadekov, Rabbi Mendel Dufman. Also, wasn't advertised, a very special guest, Rabbi Yossi Shemter, is coming on, also the farbrengen, and we know that it's getting closer to this man. So please share ideas, thoughts, zechrenis, inspiration, whatever. Farbrengen it uns, please. L'chaim.
Anyways, I got Yom Tov and I got Nerev Yom Tov, I got Nerev Shabbos. Thank you very much. It's actually a beautiful thing, and I think it comes to Simchas Torah and our Kofis. All Sidim are looking for something, because I believe for everyone who was zeicher to be by the Rebbe, and we hopefully convey this to the next generation and the generations after that, our kinder and Einiklach, etc., that actually this was, for some of us, mamish the highlight of the year, especially those that didn't grow up in Crown Heights like us. We were on Shlichus in Miami, and I really appreciate my parents who took us almost every single year, at least for Simchas Torah, Sukkot and Simchas Torah, we were zeicher to be there. So it's a tremendous, tremendous time that brings us back to the zechrenis. We can never forget and inspire us to continue in our avodah of Yom Tov, etc. So just to share with you some zechrenis that I remember. I was zeicher to be by the Rebbe HaKofis from Tafshin Mem Aleph and on. I was in New York for some of the other years. There's a picture that was just recently published of me getting lekach out of Kippur, Tafshin Lamed Ches. So we were around, but I don't think I was back office. I was probably too young. I don't want to spend too much time, but this just reminds me something that sometimes it's a lesson for life, that we get disappointed about something, and because of that, it ends up being a milah. There's that picture that was published in the Kfar Chabad. It's a picture of my father and me and my brother getting lekach, Tafshin Lamed Ches. I remember that maimed getting lekach, and I'll tell you why. I went by the Rebbe hundreds of times, and I can't say that I remember specifically every single time, but that time I do. Why is that? Because I was walking, I was first, I'm older than my brother, and my brother stuck out his hand closer to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave him a piece of lekach before me. And I remember, as a kid, how old was I in Lamed Ches? 6 years old. I remember it went through my head. Why did the Rebbe give my brother first the lekach? If I'm first, right? But you can see in the picture, my brother has the lekach already. It's a set of 3 pictures, and then the Rebbe is actually giving me afterwards lekach. And because of that moment of that Stechen Hartzen that the Rebbe didn't give me first, because of that, I remember that Maimed Lekach ad Hayom Hazeh. So I'm thankful and happy that there was a little bit of, in my mind as a kid, a little bit of a glitch. Turns out to be a gewaldige schus and a memory. But going forward, just Hakofis, so it was mamish the highlight. First, I'll share a few little nekudas that I recall from Tafshim Mem Aleph. Mem Aleph was the famous Hakofis. Actually, the Rashag wasn't there. From Mem Beis through Mem Zayin, the Rashag was again there. That Rebbe danced with the Rashag, which is a sugya b'fnei atzma. It was an unbelievable maimed. But Mem Aleph also wasn't there because he had a stroke. So the Rebbe actually danced alone. And I was there, Hakofis Tafshim Mem Aleph, as a kid. I remember two distinct things. The Rebbe's Hakofa with the kids. I think it was Hakofa, I'm forgetting already, Hakofa Dalad or Hakofa Hey. That was the Hakofa with the children. And all the descriptions in the Yumanim are how the Rebbe's face was glowing. And some of us, but that you read a Yuman and you were by the Rebbe, you don't always believe everything that it says when it comes to the Hedgeshim and the descriptions. But specifically this case, I can tell you, the Rebbe's face was literally glowing. I picture myself standing amongst the children, The Rebbe holding the Sefer Torah, surrounded by kids, not just surrounded, being pushed around by the kids. Literally, the Rebbe was like Hamish with the kids. There was a boy from Miami that they said that he fell down with one hand. The Rebbe picked him up, helped him up. They say, this is what they said, B'shaita Levi Rod. It's a kid from Miami, Yaman today, obviously. The Rebbe helped him up. They were singing Utzoetz of the Sufar. It was a tremendous, tremendous kiruv from the Rebbe with the children, to the children. And this leads me to that particular zikaron that I want to mention, which touches me every single year, not because it was something specific, because I was part of it. So the place that we had, the children, me and my cousins, we used to sit in front by the Aron Kodesh on those boards there that they used to put on top of the shvil. When the Rebbe came in, they would cover them with boards. So kids would sit there. So at the end of our kofis, the Rebbe came up, and the Seder was, maybe it started in Mamalef, they used to sing Aleinu, like as if they were like a camp or a kids rally. Aleinu, the whole 770, the Rebbe would turn around. Sometimes he would make with his hand, sometimes not. But towards the end of the whole hakofis, the Rebbe turns around, and he looks straight at me, and he points to me like this with his finger. Come here. Kimuvan, that I ignored the Rebbe, because the Rebbe is obviously not pointing to me to come, or me ani. Goes by a few moments, and the Rebbe does the same thing again. He points again to me, and he tells me to come to him. Again, I ignored the Rebbe, of course. And then the Rebbe turns to Rabbi Gron, and he whispers something to him, and he comes over to us and says, the Rebbe wants all of us, all the children that were sitting over there, to come sit right next to the Rebbe, by the Rebbe's feet. So we all got up, and we all went, end of our kofis, to sit by the Rebbe's feet. I don't recall this was Shmini Atzeres, this was Simchas Torah. And the Rebbe was standing amongst us, I guess probably making with his hand by the Nigunim or Zaleinu, with a big smile, to the extent that some of the kids, Ad Kedei Kach, we know that in Lubavitch, it's also betachlis to give the Rebbe a hand. Only Fremde didn't give the Rebbe a hand. But some of the kids, there was such a tremendous emotional kiruv and hergish to the Rebbe. They went over to the Rebbe. I didn't even know who they were. And they gave the Rebbe Shalom Aleichem. I recall the Rebbe with such a smile, standing on his place, giving the hand back to the kids, mamish, as if this was the most normal and expected thing from the Rebbe to the children at that time, to give Shalom Aleichem to all those children. And this is a tremendous zikaron that I have, just a personal zikaron from Hakofis. They say another thing, this I don't remember, when the Rebbe went to the first Hakofah. So I was a kid, it was my first Hakofas by the Rebbe, and I had to go to the bathroom. And everybody, if you remember, used to jump up on the tables from the front of 770 to see the Rebbe dance the Hakofis. In those days, the Rebbe was on the ches, was lower than in the later years. So I took the opportunity. The floor was empty, so I went to the bathroom. By the time I came back, everybody was back on their place, and the Rebbe was already there. So this I recall. They started to, who are you, Shapiro? Where are you going? Oh, you're going up there. So they started to pass me, as they used to do, from person to person. So that part I remember. But the Rebbe stopped, and the Rebbe pointed to me and told me to start a niggin. My father told me this, and obviously I didn't start a niggin, but the Rebbe did point to me and tell me to start a niggin. Another quick zikaron that I have, that today was ma'usher finally by somebody. It's just a hergish as a child. I never saw this in the Yumanim, but somebody posted today in one of the groups. I always remember this. One year, the Rebbe was on his way down from the steps after our kofis, or Shmini Atzeres or Simchas Torah, and the Rebbe stopped in the middle of the steps, and he started to announce, to scream loud 3 times, Daloi Golus, Daloi Golus, Daloi Golus. I remember as a kid, I'm just going back as a kid, I had no idea what Daloi Golus meant. I had come from Miami. Maybe the kids in Crown Heights knew this terminology from the Rebbe, and I had no idea what the Rebbe was talking about. I was sure this means Mashiach just came. Daloi Golus, the Rebbe screaming. I remember that hergish, that excitement that I had for that split second. It was a split second. Nothing happened. Beis Hamikdash didn't fall down. Nothing happened. But I felt this is Mashiach just came. Now the Rebbe screamed then Daloi Golus. And the tremendous. I mean, we could talk for a long time. I'm sure others will talk. When the Rebbe would walk with the Sefer Torah, how people would kiss the Sefer Torah, the kids would kiss the Sefer Torah. I even remember one episode that's just stam, has nothing to do with specifically Simchas Torah. There was a particular year that was a mekurev to the Rebbe and let's say even Beis Harav and the Rebbetzin, etc. And he was quite shikir. Then I was standing right there. And when the Rebbe went to the Hakofis, he had a l'chaim Simchas Torah, and he gave the Rebbe a starke l'chaim. And on the way back again, he gave the Rebbe a starke l'chaim, and he was ganz begilufin. So the Rebbe walked over to him, and the Rebbe started to grab away the bottle of mashke. I was standing there, I was a kid, maybe Mem Dalit, and he started to struggle with the Rebbe. Finally, the Rebbe got away the bottle of mashke from him, and it was like everybody was like standing around. It was like a whole geschäft. Farbrengen, the next day, the Rebbe came down with the bottle, and when he went by Kosher Bracha, the Rebbe gave him back the bottle. There's a tape of it, and the Rebbe says, "Fanander Teilen to the Melum." So I remember he was also giving out l'chaim afterwards to everyone. And another incident, another little episode that I remember from our office that I'll just share with you. There was a bocher, a kid actually. He was a kid. He's the first time my age, maybe a little younger. Today he calls himself the Upper Rebbe. He's a Shmuel Zalman of Zaynikol. It's a whole story how that happened. But either way, he was by the Rebbe that year, Tav Shemem Dalad, I think he was. He had payas above his Yamunke because he was raised by his mother's father, who was an Amshin of a Chosed. So Binke Altos tells the Rebbe, he was standing right next to me. Binke Altos tells the Rebbe, das is Shmuel Zalman of Zaynikol. So he wasn't a Chassidish, it wasn't a Lubavitcher, he's just mamish raised by us, Kilo, learned by us as a kid, so he gave the Rebbe a hand. So, or the Rebbe gave him a hand, and the Rebbe shook his hand, and the Rebbe told him, I remember this bizarre Loshen, loud, an Heichafen Kol, was Eiswachsen, a greise Chossid, a greise Yerushalayim, und a greise Lamden. He told him in the middle of our coffers then. So I remember that whenever I tried to convey a bracha of Chossid Shma'im Lamden, that sound of the Rebbe in the middle of our coffers screaming a grace of Chossid is always reverberating in my ears. Also, once, whatever, we could talk for a long time, I'll stop in a minute. The Rebbe told Teleshevsky, he should say, he tells the Rebbe, I can't, there's too much of a crowd. A big smile, like, who cares? Oh, no matter what, say it anyways. Say Yirotzen anyways. Anyways, what's the point of all these Zechrenes? I'm sure you hear from the Mashpiyim that when we know what Hakofis was and what the Rebbe imbued in us during Hakofis for this 48 hours that we have, tremendous 48 hours that we Pasha lived with the Rebbe, basically 48 hours, mamish, and a 3-day yontiv, 3 days, is a pool in Nimsheches. Not just it's Nimshech the Eides, the pool guf is a pool in Nimsheches. That it should be me'ered us, and if we read about it and we listen to others that know about it, it's certainly me'ered us to be able to properly dance by our covers and properly feel the Rebbe with us by our covers. There's no question about it. And the Rebbe is with us just now was Nesparsim, was always known, but Nesparsim that settled to Rav Goldstein, all about Sholem, that the Rebbe told him that Ayi Tracht wegen Madrid, the Rebbe is dear. So the Rebbe doesn't need you to think about him specifically. The Rebbe is telling you, I'm thinking about you and I'm with you together for Yom Tov. Akut Yom Tov. Sein alle Brachas and alle Hamshachas.
Zag alle Chaim und noch ein Meister.
Zag alle Chaim. Okay, I'll say after get a little bit ask my Medila a bit and I'll say noch ein meiser that's not specifically for our coffers, but it's a sukkis dike meiser that happened with me. Actually, you know what? So that's the biggest sukkis. The Rebbe used to come in the mems. The Rebbe would come in Cholomei, and the Rebbe would give tzedakah to the kids. The later years, for whatever reason, it stopped, and sometimes it took the Rebbe 40 to 45 minutes to get from the back of shul to the front. All those that were sleeping had more time to bench the Rebbe's esrik because Hallel davening started later and Hallel was later. So I was there in one of those days of Cholamayit. I don't remember which year it was, but I was a kid, and all the kids were standing. Maybe 50 kids were standing around that double pushka, in front of the bime. There was a double pushka there where the kids would stand, and I was standing there amongst a bunch of children. And for some reason, give me a little bit, L'chaim. For some reason, I felt it was chutzpahdik, and I can't explain to you why. I felt it was chutzpahdik to actually stick my hand out. I felt, if the Rebbe wants to give me, let the Rebbe give me. This is a little kid. This is the mind of a kid. So I was standing there, and of course, I didn't stick my hand out. Of course, I didn't get. I was disappointed. So I decided tomorrow, Kimuvan, I'm going to stick my hand out and try to get stuck in. So tomorrow I came back again, and it was 50, 100, a lot of kids were standing around the pushkit, and I put myself right in the front to make sure that I'm going to get the tzedakah. I don't want to miss this. And I stuck out my hand, and from one of the first that Rebbe gave me, and the Rebbe actually gave me a quarter. So right away, as a kid, you see, everyone else got a nickel. I got paid back for yesterday. Right? And the Rebbe continued giving all the kids. The Rebbe finished giving all the kids. He finished everybody, and then he turns to me and he asks me, Shingehat, made sure that I got the tzedakah. That moment, I was stunned. I went running to my father. The Rebbe spoke to me. So the Bachram, what did the Rebbe say? He asked me Shingat. For them, big deal. But for me, it was a huge, huge deal. On the frat, I was the only kid the day before. I didn't end up getting tzedakah. Another quick story on the same note. It was Sukkot also. Memvov, I was bar mitzvah then. I was standing near the pushki when the Rebbe came from his house to 770 or came out for the lulav, something, mamish in the morning. And the Rebbe was giving, and I didn't expect to get because I had a hat. But the Rebbe turned to give me. So he gave me a dime, but I wasn't ready. So the dime fell on the floor. So I bend down to pick it up. Little Groner taps me on the shoulder. I pick my head up. The Rebbe makes with his hand. He wants it back. So I gave the Rebbe the dime back. And he gave me a second dime. This is Cholamayit Sukkis. I think it was Tovshim Memvov. Anyways, all these stories give me at least chayes kimuvan, and I hope by sharing them and repeating them with the olam here, it also gives the olam abisal chayes. L'chaim, we should be able to internalize all these in Yonim, and remember that Taka the Rebbe is with us and dancing with us the whole time. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim, thank you very much, Rabbi Shapiro. Chaim, maybe I hope you hang out over here a little bit, and maybe you'll share something on the Salvaita to other Amaiser, or the Zikaron, or the Avort. Is Rabbi Alti Tenenbaum here? Who is that? Hello. Okay, Alti Tenenbaum, wo bist du? Simcha, go into the sukkah. Okay, but Nata, you want to speak? Where's Alti?
Hello, Rabbi Levertov.
Yes.
Okay,
Better.
I have minutes because I'm middle of making calls out of Yom Tiv, and I told maybe I'm going to need to be on the beginning. Is it on? Am I on for you now?
You're on, and you're here.
Okay. So with all this things, what everybody's going to give over, what we hear, what we get to Aliyah, I want to give over two little short things. First of all, as a kid of 7 years old, this is going back Tafshin of Zayin or Chavches, the old 770. So, standing there, my father used to, I was the oldest, my father used to take me to Chafis, and some 70, how wide is some 70? 30 feet. We used to stand on a table. My father used to take the gartel and turn me around. I shouldn't fall off and able to see the Rebbe and dance at Chafis. This is something as a kid is going back 47, 48 years ago. And going into the next couple of years, when we were kids, we stood under the table till 13 years old. But I want to just stay brief one thing here. From Tafshim Mem Chesan, when it was only the Rebbe dancing the Koffer, and we were right there standing by the Ches. We couldn't even continue standing there. We in Porsche given, Uizgematet, Uizgemutschen. The Rebbe went on and on. And this is, the Rebbe was, how old in the mid-80s. When the Teches was gesehen, wie the Rebbe gestanden und getanzt. We never saw such a thing. All the years that Kofis was exactly a minute and a half. The Rebbe stood there with the Rashag, and then afterward, it was over. But we had, with Yishnata races and down to the Kofis. But from when Chesen on, that's even his Galus Mamish. And I want to say something else. From those Kofis, from all those years, we saw guys who weren't exactly Chsidische Chevre. Aber sie kommen zu Kofis und sie gestanden, gestuppt sich. Und das ist die zurückgebracht zum Rebbe. Those Kofis seeing the Rebbe dancing and looking in them. And there's a story with a young guy. I'm going to just finish up with this. This was Tavshin Lametes. And the Rebbe was trying to get the attention of one of the young Bachrim. He was then in Olitei. He was going through a tough time. And the Rebbe gemacht them to that mit das gesehen. The Rebbe gemacht zu dem der erste Koffer, der letzte Koffer. And after Yontiv, a few weeks after Yontiv, he said L'chaim. He tried to say L'chaim Shabbos to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe didn't answer him. And he was getting a little bit upset. He didn't understand. After 4 weeks, his father wrote into the Rebbe, and he writes to the Rebbe, "My Zun sagt L'chaim Shabbos," and he feels the Rebbe's not answering. And the Rebbe answered him. Durch 4 Wochen von der Kofis, und ich habe aufgeheben, und ich gemacht dem zu der Hand, und ich gemeint, ich mal rausgezieht. Darf tun, was darf tun. And this was a Kofis. A Kofis, the Rebbe took us to the next level. Und wir steht da, kann man show you for a Kofis. Die was in gestanden, auf einer Heimbenacht bei Kofis, vermachen die Egen, und gedenken dem heiligen Zeit, was sie gewähnt. Porsche Gepschutim, die was in den Chabad-Houses, da haben sie an der Elom und tanzen mit sie. Aber nimm den Moment und geh rein zurück in die Korim von 30 Jahren und tanze Kofis mit den Reben, der ewigste Tag helfen. Als noch heim bei Nacht, Herren, die Psuris Tebe, und als der Rebbe steht und tanzt Kofis, wo je gelegen und alle guten Jontiv und a freilichen Jontiv. Chaim Livrache.
Chaim Livrache. Rabbi Tenenbaum, you have, again, a beautiful sukkah with a beautiful svarim in your sukkah. How do you guys do that? I don't know. My svarim don't last in my sukkah. Anyways.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I'm sorry, I ran out to try to set it up in the sukkah. It didn't work. So I said L'chaim there before, and I'll say after. But basically, There's nothing to say that wasn't said. There's not, and everything that's said needs to be said. But very basically, it says I think it was Rabbi Shapiro mentioned the 48 hours, in the time, or the 72 hours in the times of 770 was Pashal L'Maylam and Azman, literally, physically, figuratively, whatever you want to say. So Pashal you moved into 770 and there was nothing to talk about. There was a davening of farbrengen and so on and so forth. Everyone has various zechrenis. A basic zikaron I think that everyone has if you paid attention. So first of all, it's a technical thing. Because if you wanted to stand near the Rebbe, again, you could sit in the bleachers and you could see everything. But if you wanted to be b'teich and yanim, you either were towards the Mizrach, up where the Rebbe stood by the Teresas and in between the Akafas, or you stood around the center, the Ches in the middle, and you saw the first and seventh Akafa. To be able to see both, unless you're up high, you're looking mechutz. And if you stood next to it, that's when you really, to be part of it, as we say. So I remember I have done both, but the one thing that anyone as a kafir would remember when the Rebbe used to dance with the Sefer Torah in the middle of the first and seventh kafir with the shag, without the shag, the Rebbe would look at every single person. The Rebbe would make eye contact, up, down, kids under the table. You saw it wasn't peripheral. It was how the Rebbe managed to look at 10,000 people, 5,000 people in one shot is nishkin shayla. But the fact is the Rebbe did it. And that was an amazing thing. Now, everyone has different zechreinis. I just want to mention one small thing, because I think it's small that it goes under the radar. I must have been bar mitzvah. It was the first year. When did they expand 770 for the third time? I think Tavshin Lamed Aleph. I think whenever there's a war in Israel, 770 was expanded, right? Tavshin Chav Zayin, Tavshin Lamed Aleph. Am I right or wrong? Those that know, I think it's Tavshin Lamed Aleph. Because that was the first year that I remember. So I was just bar mitzvah then, that they made the ches in the middle should be very organized with metal tables and everything. Come in that. So the first night, which was much quieter, or maybe it was the second night, I don't remember, because it was the 770 was half empty. Everyone was on Talucha. I was standing up next to the Kaddish. I was standing with a few friends, and I verified today. The Rebbe left after Meyer, walked down to go out up to his room, and somehow the Vada Masada, who were the most amazing people, made sure that the Rebbe walked into the Ches and was now locked in. The Rebbe walked into the Ches, you can't get out. It's locked. There's only one entrance to come in from the Rebbe steps, and that's it. And I remember like today, I don't know if you could see this. The Rebbe walked over. I got to change a thing. The Rebbe sat down on the table and swung his feet over. It was mamish in 2 seconds. Before anyone could figure out what was happening, the Rebbe sat on the table, swung over. I remember him holding the siddur. The siddur swung over, and he continued on the shvil. So small, in 2 seconds it happened. Literally, before I think the Chacham, the Vada Masada could figure out what to do. How do you, the Rebbe's not going to walk back. The Rebbe doesn't walk back. Anyway, it was an amazing thought. Why did I think of that? Again, there's many things. So many things happen. It was impossible for someone to see everything. It was Pashto Meglach. If you were here, you weren't there. If you were there, you weren't upstairs. That same year, and again, we're going off tangent because I think Katzman or someone mentioned the other day, the Rebbe stood on the chair upstairs, Shabbos Chol Meitzukis by Mincha. It's a story in itself. Because that year, the Rebbe didn't get onto the chair by Napoleon's March. Shabbos Chol Meitzukis Mincha. Anyway, whatever.
What year?
I think it was Lamed Daled, because it was the first year that they made the big bima for the Rebbe. Again, I don't remember the year. I remember I was a little kid davening upstairs. And it was upstairs. The Rebbe came by Mincha, sing Allah Salahach. They were dancing. I think someone told the Rebbe after that the Sefer Torahs in their Kaddish were shaking. So maybe that's why the Rebbe didn't do it again. I don't know Pashanut. I'm just telling you fact. What's the point of here? We'll go through all 150 people. Everyone's going to have some zikaron. Everyone's going to remember something. You're either upstairs, you're downstairs. If you're farbrengen late at night, you're going to wake up in the morning. The morning of Kafis was amazing. The Rebbe came into the shul, was not exactly full. But my point that I'm getting to, I just want to get to a point. We'll hear a bunch of amazing zechreinos. Rabbi Shapiro had this, and the next one's going to hear that. No one was able to see everything, but everyone knew that a Kafis is happening, and that the Rebbe is dancing, and the Rebbe is farbrengen. I moved away, and Shlichus, a Kafis was still going, and they were still dancing. In my mind, 770 is still going. I don't see. I don't see. I didn't see then either. I wasn't zeicher to see everything then either. And I think that's the pshat what we have to imagine over the next 2 days. Whether you're at 770 or at the oil or you're Makam Shlichus, wherever you are, Hakafis is still going. Everything is still happening. Unfortunately, we don't see it. Obviously, I'm not going to make it sound like life is perfect. It's not. But we still have to be in the moment, and we have to share it with our kids. We have to share it with our families. We have to share it with the Balabatim as if it's happening, not safe as Amal Gevan. I mean, it's good for Erev Chaim. But what we're supposed to do is take that Erev Chaim and imagine. I'm looking around, most of the people that I see here that I recognize aren't shlichus. You can't be in 770 anyway. I remember I came here, it was 6, 7, 8 years that I missed Hakafis. So 8 years, 28 years. It's all to say Hakafis are going. Hakafas are happening, the Rebbe is dancing, Chassidim are dancing. We need to dance with, we need to share the excitement of the 48 hours of Simchas Torah, was the Rebbe aufgegeben, each and every person, l'maylam azman u'makim, literally, we have that chance to lift ourselves and lift up our community. It's very hard to finish without l'chaim, aber the Rebbe shall help him as al-zeicha zayin. No, I don't have anything. To see real Hakafas, and we won't need these Zooms. Can we say a good kvittel? If you don't say l'chaim, what is a good kvittel? A gmar chtima tova. I mean, it's like very funny. A
good yontiv, a good Shabbos. L'chaim, for you.
Good yontiv, good yontiv. Okay.
Are you going to say tonight? You're supposed to say v'lchadedi b'sheket, right? B'lachash.
If you're still keeping track tonight, what's balachash and what's not, then that's tshuvaton.
We could do tshuva.
L'chaim is definitely not balachash. It doesn't say that anywhere. There is no publication that says l'chaim balachash. Akopanim, lady easy. Nicht von der Gedrückte.
Thank you, Rabbi Tenenbaum, for the warme Wörter. Rabbi Harlig, Yossi Harlig is da.
Yes, yes.
Wo bist du? As in Sukkah.
I follow protocol.
Exactly.
Am I fine? I don't know how good the Wi-Fi is. The sukkah is fine. Is the Wi-Fi fine?
But by the way, we hear you.
L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Shikoyach.
Just in case if one person here doesn't know, you're Rabbi Meir Harlig's son, so.
Correct. That's what I'm speaking of today. When Rabbi Slanim called me, he said, "Can you speak?" I said, "It's not my kav." They said, "But say something for your father." So I said, "All right." Leila Nishmas, Rabbi Yehuda Yisrael, but Mordechai. So I said, "All right, we'll do it." So it's interesting. He said, "Share something about your Zechariah Simchas Torah or something about your father." So all of us growing up. So looking around, I see some of our chavedim that we were, growing up together in 770 Crown Heights. All year was special, but the 48 hours or 72 hours of the Simchas Torah, Shmini Atzeret, Simchas Torah, all of us knew that we were in another world. We were in Gan Eden. If this is what Gan Eden is all about, it's worth it to do all the mitzvahs. This is another realm. But I was thinking today, for my father, because I was talking to my mother, 11. I said, "Ma, I don't remember ever Shana Rabba having a meal. You're supposed to have a meal." And I started thinking about for my father, just a few minutes, talking about my father, that, for him, Shana Rabba and going to Simchas Torah was a very different day than a lot of kids for their father, because, last night was Tillim, and today in the morning he got the Lulav, and he was with the Lulav and Esrig until, 1, 2 o'clock. And then, right after that, he didn't run home to go eat. It was Lakach. He was with the Rebbe with Lakach till Erev Simchas, till right before Shemitah says. I don't ever remember having a family meal today. And then from there, going straight in to Simchas Torah, to Shemitah says Simchas Torah. So he was like basically around the clock in 770 and next to the Rebbe. But the other thing to say about my father is, for a lot of us, we waited for the highlights to be with the Rebbe. We understood Tkiyas, Bracha, Yom Kippur, Napoleon's March, Hakafis. Those are special moments we don't want to miss. What's amazing, and I think about this a lot, since, I didn't think about as much years ago, but I think about now a lot, that my father was able to appreciate, for him, a Mincha Maidiv. I never sat down and asked him that question, but a regular Mincha Maidiv on a Tuesday or Wednesday in the summer, or in the winter, was as important as standing by the Rebbe Hakafis. If I ever doing Shiva, someone mentioned to me, B'Shem Rabbi El Khan, that he's envious of my father, that for him, a maimer and a sicha, hakafis, and a mincha ma'ariv was as valuable and as important. And that's something that's so, I think back about it and saying that this is something that all of us could be inspired, that anything that Rebbe did and anything that Rebbe was involved with, for my father, that was the most important thing. He didn't wait just for the first and last hakafa, but every single day, year was important. Like all want to miss the first hakafa and last hakafa, my father didn't want to miss anything. And one of the things of my father's also is that he didn't only run alone, but he took his kids with him. So a lot of times my social media, I see a picture of you next to the Rebbe on the table. But it was really all about my father bringing us along. So I had the schus to stand right next to the Rebbe, my father's schus, because he schlepped me along and brought me along and made sure that I was always there. So there's two thoughts, there's many things that we could talk about. There are two things that I like to share that I still think about many times in Simchas Torah. L'chaim, l'chaim. Beryl, you hear me?
We all hear you.
We hear you good.
Perfect. So one of them was
Wait.
Tavshin Lamed
Taka,
Ches.
make sure everybody else says l'chaim too.
So one of
Fine.
them was Tavshin Lamed Ches. Tavshin Lamed Ches, I was standing right next to the Rebbe. At that time, I was 7 years old. Tavshin Lamed Ches. And I still remember that night very, very clearly. There's very few things you remember when you're 7 years old, but I remember I stood, let's say, a foot from the Rebbe. And I remember then the Rebbe becoming pale and breathing heavy and sitting down in his chair. Remember, I'm a little kid there. I'm watching the way everyone's smashing the windows in the Weibishul. Some of you on this call may remember or not. And I remember them bringing up a pitcher of water. Remember the sink that was right outside 770, right outside the shul. They passed a quart up, and then they passed a cup of water, and the Rebbe didn't take anything. And I remember I stayed there with my father till the shul emptied out. You can imagine a 7-year-old child watching the commotion around you. It was like pretty overwhelming. The Rebbe didn't want to drink out of the sukkah. And then the Rebbe left the shul very slowly after everybody left. And I was standing there with the Rebbe. But I remember what still is always in my mind is what happened the next night. Again, I was a young child. And I still remember 770. I don't know if any of you on this Zoom remember this. But the whole 770 was singing that night. The Rebbe is gesund, the Rebbe is gesund, the Rebbe is gesund. And you, as a young boy, you remember the dancing. People were crying and celebrating and besimcha. And it was, the Rebbe wasn't in the shul that night. So you think of all the akafas that I was throughout my life, from Tavshin, Shrabi Lamed Hey, Tul Mem Gimel Mem Daled, I was standing right next to the Rebbe, a foot away, the front. And then later on, I stood next to where the Rebbe danced. But I still remember the ava and the concern and the love and the simcha of the next night dancing downstairs while the Rebbe was upstairs singing the niggun. The Rebbe is gesund, the Rebbe is gesund. Mashiach Zashen Kom. And that was a memory that I won't forget. Also, standing in the front, like some of you said, there's different advantages where you stand. You see the Rebbe Kafim standing in front. There was a lot going on in the front that people didn't realize that was happening. That the Rebbe, on one hand, was inspiring the whole Olam, thousands and thousands of people. And the Rebbe was also focusing on individuals. I remember there was a particular chassid. I remember hearing that story. He was standing right there. They told the Rebbe about another. He had a close relationship with the Rebbe, and he told the Rebbe about a certain doctor. I'm not going to mention the name. As a Psanadisha doctor. So the Rebbe asked him, "Did you ever go to this doctor?" He said, "Yeah." So he said, "Did you pay the doctor?" He said, "Yeah." So it's a new Severis dinar. So it was like a lot of those kind of things that were going on with the Rebbe, and like Rabbi Shapiro said at the beginning, I remember when the Rebbe took away the bottle of mashka from that individual that was carrying it, and the Rebbe was schlepping it away from him. So there was a lot going on in the front where you saw that the Rebbe's individual focus on everyone that needed a particular inspiration or a particular thing that the Rebbe needed that moment. Also, one year my father hurt himself, and he hurt the bandage on his head. And my brother Mendy was dancing with a lot of chayas, and the Rebbe was telling my father, you should learn from my son, from my brother, Mandy, to learn how to dance and have that chayas that year. I know my father had hurt himself right before that. I'd like to share.
Yossi,
Yes,
was that the year when the Rebbe went like that?
yes. Forget him, yeah. Another very interesting thing that I think about for all of us who grew up in 770 and going through the 48 hours of Simchas Torah, Shmini Atzeres, I remember always going to Talucha and feeling bad. I started going Yossi, Chadakav. I went to Gezedus shul. I remember we used to go to East Flatbush, and I used to feel bad for the people there. I said, "Oh my God, we go there to make it a simcha." And they didn't sing Kimitzi and Teitz Sorah and Avena Shalom Aleichem like I'm going to do in a few hours from now. But Baruch Hashem, we're able to go back to 770 in our mind and dance around the bima. But I used to remember feeling bad going to look and saying, "Oh my God, do you?" And
You're muted.
opportunity. You have an opportunity to be by the Rebbe, and Nebuch, you're standing in these shows in Bar Park and Flatbush, not realizing that you have Kodesh HaKadoshim here. You have the Kohen going to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and you're in your shul over here. So another interesting thought I think about a lot is after going through the 48 hours of Shmini Atzeres, the farbrengen and the talucha, and all the things that went on. Then we used to have Matzah Simchas Torah, we had a farbrengen. And then the Rebbe would farbreng. And then later it was Kesha Bracha. So we sit by Kesha Bracha. So by 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, I'm not sure what time Kesha Bracha was. But then all of us are spent. We're wiped out, not sleeping, Simchas Torah and everything. And the line would go on and on and on and on. And then finally the line would finish. When the line would finish, everything, okay, fine, okay, we could go home, we could relax. This is just us as Chassidim, young people, we weren't, the Rebbe would get up and say, is there someone else that still didn't get Kesha Bracha? We're like already spent, ready to leave, and the Rebbe is continuing to give and to give and to give, and is getting up and asking, is there still someone else that I could give? And this is what Simchas Torah was about. Simchas Torah was all about non-stop the Rebbe giving, either through teaching the members for my days, the Akafis, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, the farbrengen and everything was 48 hours of giving to us Chassidim and to everyone else around in the community. And that's something that we have to do ourselves. This is what the Rebbe would want from us, to continue to give of ourselves the next 48 hours.
L'chaim Yossi. Thank you very, very much.
Just to conclude, you know what a rabbi says to conclude? It doesn't mean anything. So just to conclude, one quick story that happened with me personally with the Rebbe.
What would the Rebbe say? The kids talk upon him.
The kids talk upon him. That I had this course that, we used to go to 770. The Rebbe used to give us, and we would stand in front of 770 to get a coin from the Rebbe to put into the pushka. So I got many, many times in the Rebbe. That's what, that's my father took us. That was our playground, was going to 770. Me, Yossi Chadakav, Levi Klein. That's where we would hang out. The Kvutza Bachim were our friends. So one year, sorry, I remind myself. One year, by the time it came to me, they never ran out of coins. All right, I figured, okay. So we ran out of coins. I got enough time. So I walked out in front of 7-7. I left, standing in front of 7. 7 minutes later, maybe a minute later, people come in, the Rebbe's looking for you. So I run back inside, and the Rebbe gave me a coin. He said, I didn't give you a coin. Here's a coin for you. And I thought about, many times I think about this. I mean, Yossi hardly, the Rebbe didn't do because Yossi, I'm not anything special. But I've gotten many times from the Rebbe. The Rebbe saw me many, many times. But here there's a boy that didn't get a coin one time. He ran out of a coin. The Rebbe walked back into his room, into his desk to get a nickel, come back out looking for me, that I should also get the coin to go in. So the Rebbe's love and care for us Chassidim, people that are around him, was unconditional, was something that, like the Rebbe will tell him, I think about him more than he thinks about me. And that's something that I always think about, how no matter what, the Rebbe, each one of his chassidim, we were his children. And if a child doesn't have something, the Rebbe wants him to have it. L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, Yossi, thank you very, very much. You mentioned Yossi Chadakov, Harav Yossi Yitzchak Chadakov, also played around 770.
Hold on, one more story. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, hang in, Yossi. We'll be back. Whenever you say, the videos that Evis has usually a shiny rabba because so much things to do. You still get tight to then. The pale, it's like a regular sikh of an hour or more. Kids up upon him. No, Yossi. We don't see you. We see you. We don't hear you.
I'm right here. F in the Egan.
Oh.
I want to pick up on what my chaver Yossi said. Pakistan was literally our playground. On the way back from school, we stopped in and all that. But first of all, somebody recently told me a Maisa Yossi about your father. I was a Maisa about your father about this. And someone wrote to the Rebbe. He was thinking to start wearing a kapata every day. And the Rebbe was Shailal. His taina was, but the Meir Harlig wears a kapata all the time. He said, you'll be like him. Question. So I don't know that everyone is shaykh, that every mincha might have to have the same tayarkite and then appreciation, understand it. The Seder certainly had its advantages. I also want to, I think most of the people we're seeing here from the chafs and the lamets and the mems, but Lamed Ches stands out. And to me, what was striking about the singing of the Rebbe's Gesund, Taka, dancing and the crying, which I remember very vividly. And I remember also when the niggin changed, because singing the Rebbe Zol Zayin Gesund, the Rebbe Zol Zayin Gesund, and then it switched. And in my little childish seven-year-old mind, I thought, oh, it's everything is good. So the Rebbe's feeling better. I don't remember one of the Bachim that I asked, Kvutzo, whoever it was, one of our adult friends. I don't remember what he told me, but somehow he explained to me that the matzav is what the matzav is. But as chassidim, this is the attitude we go with. It's an important thing because Simchas Torah b'chlal, we live on a different plane. And I think, again, just to echo on what has been said and will be said, and even for those who weren't with us back exactly in those days, I think that Simchas Torah is a time that however old you are and wherever you find yourself, that you're able to dance a kafis with the Rebbe. You're able to, things happen on a different level on Simchas Torah. In fact, the Rebbe had an aliyah together with the Frierdiker Rebbe and other such things. I'm just going to share another story also. This same man who had his bottle taken away, I don't remember if it was that year or not, but this was upstairs in 770 after office. And like my dear uncle Alter said before, you couldn't see everything. You couldn't be anywhere, and there were things happening all over the place, things happening in the front and things happening in the ches, and people talking to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was, so to speak, in the crowd and allowed the chaos and behavior around him that normally would not necessarily be tolerated. Anyways, this younger man was upstairs. It was right after our kafis, shortly after our kafis. So waiting for the Rebbe, I don't know, to go out to a sukkah, maybe to go to the library. And he was in the room, which we used to call the magnet room, or the room with the dollars room. And he was trying to get into Gein HaTachten. He was after a lot of l'chaim, we'll say it in a nice way. And they were trying to hold him back. A bigger concern was that at any minute, the Rebbe was coming out of Gein HaTachten. So what are they going to do then? So a couple of Bachrim got ready. And as soon as the door to Gein HaTachten opened, they held him back right against the showcase, the Kahas showcase. And the Rebbe starts walking out. And he sees the Rebbe, he screams out, Rebbe, help! And the Rebbe turned around with a big smile. And walked out. Anyway, so L'chaim, like was already said, there are a lot of individual, Mendel. Mendel. A lot of beautiful faces, and I don't know how formal and how long the formal part of the program is, but L'chaim, we should be able to be zeicha, of course, to have it in a literal sense, but until that moment, we should know that we have the capacity to transport ourselves and lift ourselves, and especially wherever we happen to be, if we take the Rebbe's example and live the Rebbe's life and give like the Rebbe gave and of himself and with himself and together with all the people around him, we could tap into it, and every single one of us could and should dance Hakafas with the Rebbe. L'chaim v'levracha.
L'chaim v'levracha. Yossi, thank you very much. It begs the question: how come?
I yield my time.
What? Yield your time. Wir haben gesehen, die haben gesehen. How is it the Bachamlach, was am nicht gesehen begashmi, is they have a little bit, sometimes have more inspiration, it's more highest than us Alpha Kakers. Shaila was not farbrengen a bit, but I'm going to ask Rabbi Yisrael Darren, because Rabbi Darren is here. Good, let's see.
Yeah.
Farbrengen mit uns, Rabbi.
L'chaim. So, like this, I don't want to share Zechrenis, not because I'm shy, but I'm not sure it's a tzugem, especially with all of the rich things that we've heard up until now. I want to come at it from a little bit of a different angle. 50 years wasn't in 770. And not that when I was there, but Akapanim, most of my life is not there. I just received now a WhatsApp from a shlucha, and it's about my son Mendel, and I want to share it if I may. I know this is not traditional, and I beg apologies, but now is not a traditional time, so I is v'iti aslicha. And it reads like this. You know how crazy I could get in the last few minutes before Shabbos Yom Tov event program? So I would be freaking out about everything that has to get done before Lirbenchen on Shmini Atzeres. Screaming, and I'll pick up the copies from the copy center that has all the songs printed and planned themes for themed hakafas, buffalo wing sauce, boxes to put on the tablecloths for the buffet, b'chulu. And Mendel would stand right in the middle of it, with one hand holding his phone to his ear, as he joined in with the shluchim achtes farbrengen, and on the other hand, he was swinging a bottle of Glenlivet and marching around, singing and saying l'chaim, as if completely oblivious to my stress. My husband would be in the sukkah setting up, and every few minutes, Mendel would shove the phone into his ear and Glenlivet into his hand, and with an enthusiastic zog l'chaim. My first reaction was to be annoyed, like, hello, don't you see I have a program starting soon? But then, Baruch Hashem, it hit me. Thank you, Mendel. Thank you for reminding me that I don't have a program starting soon. Simchas Torah is here. We are Chassidim, and it's our special Yom Tov with the Rebbe. So I want to say l'chaim to my Mendel. I want to say l'chaim to every single one of you. And I want to say l'chaim to the Rebbe that Eretz Hashem, we should never again, ever have to have Simchas Torah not to be begashmis with the Rebbe. L'chaim.
Oh, thank you. Hi. Is Rabbi Mendel Duchman here?
I am.
Oh, he's waiting a little patiently. I saw you before. I didn't see you now. So
it's okay.
Are you not? We don't see you, or we just?
Can you hear me? I see everybody. So
I don't see. Okay, there's only one Mendel. Okay, fine.
If
fine.
You see me, the main thing.
Are we allowed to see you or not?
Yeah, I asked you to start your video. So how do I gotta do it?
Oh, there you go. Oh,
you see it now?
Yeah.
See it now?
See it now.
Okay, got
Thank
it.
you for waiting patiently.
Okay, I got you. No problem. It's first of all, l'chaim. I listened to the rules. Levi said, make sure it's in the sukkah. Make sure you're able to have a l'chaim. Baruch Hashem, I have all my airline l'chaims from every flight. They are pending up my package because I save them for Simchas Torah. So I'm going to use my first airline l'chaim and say l'chaim to everybody on this Zoom. So far, it's been mamish. Even if I wasn't asked to say anything, just the fact of listening and saying, yes, I remember I was there. And whether it's the bleachers, whether it's the ches, whether being passed around, and a few other zechernis which I'll share. But first and foremost, I want to give a l'chaim And I want to ask everybody who's on the Zoom to join me with a shliach from Winnipeg, Shmuel ben Bracha Tirza, mein Edim, so haben my refuah shalema kreva, totally 100% refuah b'mheira v'yameinu, amen mamish l'chaim. Okay, so I assume
Which
that
airline was that? Which airline was that?
Everybody knows the air. Ask Rabbi Darren which airline I fly. Everybody knows. I just fly one airline, Baruch Hashem. And not only that, they don't let you take the bottles home.
How does that work?
I have status. Anyway, to make a long story short, I just want to say, I assume as I was asked to join, not because of myself, not because of Mendel Duchman. First of all, it's not about fundraising. It's not about helping shluchim. It's not a, it's a ruchnizdike help, but it's not a gashmizdike help. So I assumed that I was asked to join here for simply for my father, Rabbi Yisrael Halevi, who probably, if you ask anyone around the world, who's a shliach that's identified with the Rebbe on Simchas Torah, was I had the schus to be a son. My entire tata, Olav Sholem, Rabbi Yisrael ben Abshnei Zalman Halevi, who incidentally lived the whole year for Simchas Torah. And I want to share that with you first as a son and more on a personal level, and then move it into a klolosha inyan, okay? So I was probably asked because my father had a tremendous chus to be very, very close to the Rebbe. He's been described in many letters and igris and things like that, going back to Zayda Zalman, that my father had a father-son relationship. But we knew in the house that whenever Simchas Torah was coming, that we got to get out of the way. We just got to sit. We got to listen. We got to shake our heads. Whatever my father says we got to do, we would help him with his geschäft. We stayed out of his way because there's holy stuff coming down. There's no question about it. And I think it's not only me, we even saw my mother, because when the Rebbe, my mother, Allah Shalom, whose Yotzeit is going to be in a month, also practiced that, because my father wouldn't go into 770 without his bottle of mashka. He always went with 2 pans of homemade cake, and he would make sure to tell the Rebbe, so even my mother was part of the Simchas Torah shlichus, and in a way she also stayed out of the way, so she should have this chus to be able to bake these cakes for when the Rebbe walked in 770. When my father walked into 770. And basically everybody knows that my father davened Shachris. After Shachris, he was motioned to, I don't remember exactly, I think he took it over from Rabbi Kazanovsky. The previous history, I don't know. But my father was honored to make Kiddush, and he would make Kiddush for the klal, and then he would have the mezainis, and then the Rebbe would tell him to make sure to give l'chaims to everybody. And my father stood there and gave out l'chaims, and of course, probably one for you and one for me, because he knew who he's going to be talking to, so he was well prepared. But one of the earlier stories that were told, just to correct the points, it happened with my father. The Rebbe said you should give l'chaims to everybody. And then he said that you give one to the doctor, to the doctor. What's his name? Resnick. Did you give l'chaim to Dr. Resnick? So my father said, and you have to understand the milieu, you have to understand the environment. My father spoke only in Russian. They were face to face, the Rebbe and my father. They would talk. My father would prepare the Russian sayings, the jokes. If you looked at the Rebbe, because my father was facing the Rebbe, you'd see that the Rebbe was constantly laughing and smiling. And they were really, because my father had developed old stories from Chassidim and different things. So my father was facing the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, did you give to the doctor? So my father said to them Yukul, let's put the story in straight here. To them Yukul. So the Rebbe said, aren't you his patient? So my father said, yes. Didn't you go to see him last week? Yes. He says, did you write him a check? Yes. So who's the yukul? You and him. So I remember my father saying about the story that he felt a little bad, but the main thing is he got to have another l'chaim together with Dr. Resnick. But I think that what we need to understand here, which I think everybody spoke about, and there's nothing really to add. I mean, every so often I'm sitting here with our children. Today we have the inspiration to give over to our children to carry. So sometimes Yutas Kislev and Yud Shvat and all the different important days, I think to myself, I wasn't there. What was it like? Okay. And then I find myself, when we talk about Hey Tavis, and when we talk about Simchas Torah, and when we talk about Pesach, we lived it. Maybe it was smaller, maybe it was different, but it was mamish happening, and we were totally focused on what was going on. So when it came to Simchas Torah, like I said earlier, my father would have different discussions, and I want to bring a couple of small stories that I remember after Yontif, when I used to call him. The first few years I was there as well. Then I moved out on Shlichus to Irvine, California. And the second Yontif was over, everybody gathered around the telephone. What was this year's story? So I remember one year the Rebbe said openly my father had a conversation with the Rebbe, and he said, listen, I don't know what to do, but last night by the Seudah, I took a little l'chaim, and my wife asked me not to take a l'chaim, not too much, because there's a lot of guests by the table. Maybe they'll get a different impression, He asked them, the Rebbe says you shouldn't stop. It's a time to say l'chaim. Du sollst nicht spoil werden von sie. Sie sollen nicht spoil werden von dir. And you continue to do it. So I think that in the next 2 days that, it is definitely the Rebbe's tag, but we know those who were there and those who even ran Chabad houses and run Chabad houses. It's a tkufa. It's not talking philosophy. You don't have to fight your fear. You don't have to think what to say to a balabas. You just got to pick up your feet. You just got to be besimcha, and you got to bring joy. The way, I think Alter said, closing our eyes and seeing as if we're imagining the Rebbe himself. I want to just say 2 more stories that I've prepared. First of all, l'chaim. One story is that 3 years before my father passed away, he came to me for Sukkot. I mean, now, Baruch Hashem, a lot of Hasidim parents are very proud of their kids who are shluchim, and they come and spend Yontif. So one year I asked my father to come and see the shlichus. He said, no problem, but Motzah Sukkot, the first flight, I got to get out of there. I don't want to get stuck with Chalamoid and with Simchas Torah. Like the world would come to an end if he didn't spend Simchas Torah by the Rebbe. The Rebbe should hopefully came to me to Irvine for the first days. And during the first days, he got a roiz on his foot. How do you say roiz? Whatever it is. He got a roiz on his foot. And if I can tell you, it's like chas v'sholem, somebody Nebuch passed away. He right away, he says, Mendel, take me to every doctor, take me here, take me there. I can't even think that I won't be by the Rebbe on Simchas Torah. And I remember, I know there's a lot of stories about the Rebbe, but I remember what my father instilled to me, that he, who's my father, and Rab Zalman's Chassid, and Matchayael, and the back. Like, so you'll miss one Simchas Torah. Was wird schon sein? But it is gegangen in Leben. In fact, I took him to one doctor, I'll never forget, till the last day he was living. He always reminded me of the story. I said, Ta, I have a Bala boss. He's the best in the world. He's going to take care of you. We make an appointment. We drive down to Newport Beach. We come into the doctor. He pulls up where the rise is. And all of a sudden, the doctor says, I'm really sorry. I'm a podiatrist. I only specialize from the ankle down. Everything above the ankle is nicht meine business. And if I have to tell you, my father's face turned white, and I was literally waiting for him to tell the doctor about geben murder. I'll soon give you, because he thought it was a solution. Anyway, the Rebbe geholfen, of course, with many, many medicines and doctors. He came back, and that instilled in me and my children, and now my children are instilling it into the grandchildren. Simchas Torah on dem Rebbe, wie ist das möglich? Now, there's a klolische Simchas Torah and there's a prati Simchas Torah. I firmly believe, and I'm sure if you would ask my brother, Shalom or Yossi or Baruch or anyone, I believe that besides for the klolische Simchas Torah, my father looked at it like a protesdike, where he would get his chizuk and he would be able to move on. And as they say in America, my dear friends, Taira Shluchim, validation is very important, and it's becoming more important every day. It used to be that validation you get when you went to a parking lot. But today, with the podcasts and the influencers, Chassidim, not Chassidim, alle seinen Größe Deisogers, but validation is very, very important. Okay? But we know what really validation is. And I think that the Rebbe gave my father the final validation, and almost everyone knows the story, but the year he passed away in Tovshin Mem Tes, he was standing in front of the Rebbe. And by the way, every time the Rebbe saw my father, what's the word I'm looking for? Not with l'chaim.
Oh.
Yeah, still the Rebbe would. Yeah, he would tell him right away, fill up your glass and fill up anyway. So that year, So that year the Rebbe went to him, and if you remember, and he told him to wipe, like he said, like this. My father Taka tried, and he took off his sweat, and a few minutes later the Rebbe put his hand in his pocket and he took out the handkerchief and he threw it to my father, and he told my father to wipe his forehead. Everybody around him, my father said this to me face to face. Everyone around him said, "Vav tzarek, give it back. It's the Rebbe's, give it back." He said, "Nothing doing. This is mine." And he put it into his pocket, and he came home, and he put it up on the dresser. Every time I come into the house now, I go to that corner. He put it on top of the dresser. And the next week we had a simcha or something, and the brothers were sitting around, and Shalom says, "Ich bin der Bechor. After 120, this is going to be my handkerchief." And Yossi said this, and I said this, and my father said clearly, "This handkerchief is going with me. Whenever I go, it will go with me." And Kahava, it's not that I want to talk verbally, sad things, but it's also good things. The handkerchief is actually spread out on his face, because that Vav Iyar, he passed away, and the handkerchief went with him. And we always take it in our family that was a validation. That was a validation from the Rebbe to a chassid. But the emes is, and with this I will close, the emes is we don't need validation, because if we weren't chassidim, and if we weren't Lubavitchers, and if we weren't instilled with everything that the Rebbe instilled in us, we would be nothing. We would be nothing. So yes, we have to thank the Rebbe for Simchas Torah, but we also have to thank the Rebbe for being chassidim. And within the world of chassidim, This was the prime day. This was the State of the Union. This was the day of inauguration. This was the day that gave us Chayas. So I just want to say L'chaim again, before Shalema for Shmuel ben Bracha Tirza, all the Shluchim sollen sich nicht dafen mutschen. Hashem and the Rebbe should give them everything that they need. There is no question today, and I'm sure you know this. I'm using some of my Padyam lines. Everybody knows that everyone who's on this chat are standing today in the forefront of world Jewry. The Rebbe changed the landscape of the world. We know this clearly. So tonight, when we pick up our feet, don't just think that we're picking up our feet. We're picking up all the Chasidim's feet, the ones who lived before us. We're picking up the Rebbe's feet. We're picking up each other's feet. And b'mheira v'yameinu, like Rabbi Darren said, we should have the next Simchas Torah with our father, the Rebbe. L'chaim.
L'chaim, shkeach. Thank you for sharing.
And incidentally, the Rebbe is gesund und alle Sonnen sollen platzen. We know that Nigen, it went viral. Every single chassid in Holland, they send it to me as soon as it happened. Satme, Bob, Aladdin. Because my father, let me just tell you what I think he thought about. The Rebbe is gesund, aber alle Sonnen sollen platzen. Why? Because my father was an ambassador to Lubavitch. And he hung around with a lot of people. And he knew that they weren't only so happy and thrilled with Lubavitch. And my father used to say, despite of you, ihr wird alle platzen. And we talk a seat today. Alle haben geplatzt. They're singing our songs. They're doing our... Huh? I don't hear what you're saying. Anyway,
we hear what you, we thank you, Mendel. Mendel, keep it up. You keep inspiration, and onkommen to the piatas unaitate.
We're not into. Listen, I am who I am because what I saw in my father. Otherwise, I would probably be who knows where. L'chaim, seid gesund.
Thank you. Levi Shem Tov, you wanted to, I think you have something to share. Could you share a story of farbrengen, abyssal inspiration?
It's good, actually. I don't want to do
good. Yeah, L'chaim, by the Rebbe, farbrengen. I just want to say experience and to share with everybody. Last night, the Shiner Rabba, I was by the Rabba to say to him. I think to him, and I was just thinking. I was feeling so grateful and lucky and happy. We were supposed to be with the Rabba, and Baruch Hashem was supposed to be with the Rabba Torah. And how special, how lucky we are. And I was thinking through in my mind, like, and I'm coming here, with the Rebbe gets leka, and I want to get leka from the Rebbe. I never got leka from the Rebbe, and I want to get leka. It's not, I just felt it's not fair, it's not appropriate. And I decided that after Tilim, I'm gonna write the statue to the Rebbe, that how special to be with the Rebbe, but I want to get leka. And it's because whenever someone called me to farbrengen and this, and got late, so I had to leave. I called the Uber, and I'm walking out to the car, and a friend of mine runs over to me, and he says, "Levi, you want leka?" And he says it with like, I knew he's not like giving me a piece of cake. I'm like, yeah. And he pulls out from his pocket a Ziploc bag with a small piece of leka, he gives it to me. And I'm like, I'm like, this is from the Rebbe. He's like, yeah. I'm like, what shot? What do you mean? He's like, I don't know the details. Someone gave this to me, and he told me it's left for the Rebbe. And that's it. I have this piece of laka. And go out to the car and that's what happened. Every time I always know that the Rebbe, is with us and he's looking at me and he's with us and he's giving us and he's looking at me. But I never feel it. I always know it, but to feel it is difficult. And now I'm sitting in the car and I have in my hand a piece of laka that I just asked the Rebbe for laka, and the Rebbe gave me a piece of laka.
Wow, lady, thank you very, very much.
Share that with the
So they're like as he senior. Wow.
Yossi Shemtiv. And the Avish are hoping that we should feel the Rebbe with us all the time. Like
Yossi Shemtiv. Chaim, please farbrengen with us. Whatever, farbrengen with us.
Chaim. Posche, the ganze Zoom is als gewähnt verchsidem.
1 second, Yossi.
Yeah.
So all those times you didn't go by and your son got?
What?
Not his son. Nephew.
It's a nephew. Oh, okay.
Doesn't matter.
Anyways, it's still good. L'chaim.
So what is the greatness of Zoom? The greatness of Zoom is that when you're sitting with your iPhone, then you could farbrengen. Why? Because you don't see anyone. You see one person. I mean, you need a lot of guts for that. Sitzen mit a paar Chaverim, Erev Simchas Torah, und ja, akopanim. Man doch gerät meile dike in Janim, and me meile, was kann man sagen? The only thing we could say is Be'al HaTeva. Wir sollen nehmen alles, was man gehört, alle Sachen, was man gerät bis jetzt, and push it to be able to connect with it. Connect, and then it is a different story. We mele, lassen wir probieren, die letzten Minuten, wenn wir kennen sein zusammen, about Shkias Acham in Kammer, it is Otot, lassen wir nehmen Poshet und probieren, verbinden sich mit das, was Shluchim und Chsidim haben gerät. So there's so much, was jeder einer will sagen, aber bei Emes, the best thing to say is Poshet zu nehmen a Sicha für Reben von den 1000 Sichas, wo der Rebbe hat ausgegossen seine Schame zu uns. Und wie der Wort wegen Zucker, die 2,5 Wend, mit Loschen Chibuk, Hamelech Mechapke, und sind Stocke Chilik, ein Mechapke, die schon Lovush, Levushachot, oder Kamel Levushim. Und der Rebbe ist auch nicht so was zu reden, is Mechabik jeden Chassid, Alachas Kamo v'Kamo Divas Gefinas Sachen Hori Cheshach, Beruchnius, Alachas Kamo v'Kamo Begashmius, und sie können afilo nicht sein beim Reben, sie können nicht sein beim Ziehen, is bei Zei doch Havade Koshken v'Kal v'Chemer, as a Melech Mechabke. Aber man darf nur give it a chance. The Rebbe spoke so many times that Nasi Mecha v'Libe Zakim Elef Pamim Kocha. And the Rebbe said it's not a guzma, that when we get tzedakah, what you could learn in 1,000 hours, now you could learn in an hour. But one time the Rebbe said, "Oh, but ein sham muss man lernen. Ein sham muss man lernen." The Meile, die Jiden, was ein auf der Zoom, haben bekehrt, kipshute zu tanzen zum Chasteda, und der Rebbe ist doch gemoven, begann Poshet bei seinen Chabad. Whatever. I don't want to waste the Aber ein Shah muss man geben. That's what this Shah is supposed to help us. That I call upon him. I wanted to tell you a lebedike maitza from a lebedike shliach and Hare Cheshach Beruchnis, nicht as weit the Gashmias. He farbrengen with Chaverim a couple years ago. Hat gehört as a word that when jeder einer darf tanzen mit seinen Jiden, wie viel man kann, aber es doch darf sein bei von einem Skabel, und bei anderen ist bei von einem Skabel different than my others. Ihr was tut man damals, wenn man darf was tanzen, da wenn man soll gaiven kajon, v'chulu. So the eighth is that you close the doors afterwards and everyone is home. Private he said to me, he took it Pashat Simsum Kipshute. And he and his wife, when everyone left, they locked the doors of the shul. It was late at night. And he said he never had such a Simchas Torah. At Pashat getanzt, Samach Degen, in Ezas Anoshim, was in Ezas Noshim, was in Pashat gepravet hakofes mit Rebbe. Says the only bittersweet part, not bittersweet, only not such a happy part was that his kids didn't want to join. A year later, he tells me that the next year the kids joined also. The Tata Mama, as Poshet came home and they were enjoying life. So the next year, the whole family was there from Achdetin und gepravet hakofes mit Rebbe. So that's hopefully what we could do now, is Poshet nemen alles mit Gehet und vermachen die Egen wie in Chof Chesh und Tov Shem Amalef. Und wie der Rebbe, the one magic trick the Rebbe gave us, nicht be'efen Sguli, nor be'efen Ilo v'olul, be'efen, es ist nicht als Gem Tzedakah, is mit Zayir sein, Teya, Pnei, Kedesh HaKadoshim. Und jeder eine, wenn man steht dort, und ist die Jiden verstehen doch nicht alle, und andere verstehen mehr wie von mir meinen. Und man sagt da Teoresa, und man sich mit Zayir, Teir, Pnei, Kedesh HaKadoshim, it's different. The Shliach did exactly that. And so when they gave Leila the Reisov, it took a whole year. And the first year was just him and his wife. But a year later, the kids said, as they mussten sein dort nechet. Stell sich vor, as the next day, was for a kofes from the Yidden Stadt gehabt. When the whole family is am Mishpacha, was the Nacht frier, sein Gewinn, Kila Achere Stias Yad. The ganze, as you think the people didn't get it. Adoret sich wegen lebedike live wires. Sein erst gewinn meinem Leben. Und jetzt müssen sie sich ein bisschen mit Samsung sein. Und auf Tanzen haben sie zu auch heißt. Allebei, Amen, kein die Ratzen. Chaim, L'chaim. L'chaim. Lass mal sagen, L'chaim. Chaim, der Ewig zu helfen, der Rebbe so am Nachas von uns. Der Rebbe so am Nachas von der Kinderlach, was der Rebbe schickt in alle Hare Cheshach und bett bei sie, als sie sollen nicht kommen, wo sie sollen sehen, Ratwin, den Rebbe's Kinder in allem bekämische Heim. Aber der Rebbe, was der Rebbe will wissen doch. Wie viel Nachas wird der Rebbe haben, wir wollen verbringen mit den Rebben in unserer Hare Cheshach. Mit der Zier, Teyar, Pnei, Kedesh HaKadoshim. Chaim, L'chaim.
Chaim Yossi.
Droshes, es ist das Greines Polo und die wird Eilus und mir gehört. Bei Schusscha, ich will sagen euch. The biggest secret on Lubavitch. I was driving home from the AO with a Yid that came from Lubavitch in Mishpacha with a long ponytail and a small yarmulke. And I asked him to tell a story about the Rebbe. So he told me two stories. But one of them was, I want to tell you the best kept secret in Lubavitch. It's you with a long ponytail, clearly whatever. What's the best kept secret in Lubavitch? So the best kept secret is 2 a.m. by the Ehel. I go to the Ehel, he says, 2 o'clock in the morning. There's no one there besides me and the Rebbe. It was pretty interesting. Wenn jeder Schliach steht in der Ort, von der Sider Reino hat ihm geschickt, und der Rebbe sagte ihm, als soll überkehren die Stadt, aber von der Stadt sollen sie werden Jehudim, Jereim und Schleimim, und bemeshach hazman chsidim. Und steht dort, weil der Rebbe will ihn haben. Und steht, nachdem was alle gehen nach Heim, Mishachafte, V'orvash, Nosecha, und will, kann nicht gehen, was kann nicht. Weißt du, Tisha B'Av Tarmen nicht essen, und Yom Kippur, wer kann essen? Wer kann schlafen, Shmini Atzeres bei Nacht? Steht und Betzach, und stellt sich vor, wie viel Nachas der Tate hat.
Nasi, I want to interject. That's that lab dafka. You have to do it in shul. You could do it at home also. When the kinder schlafen, tanzen for parsha. I feel allein. Nicht lassen the kinder schlafen. Und Balkarcha will be part of it. It doesn't have to be dafka in the shul. You could do that couple at home also, if that's what it takes.
Ja. Sie haben auch gemacht, sie haben in der Ort, was haben getagt, und nicht gehabt Problemen, haben sie gepravet, Hakofes mit alle gute Siches. Aber ich verstehe nicht gewähnt. Sagst du, man kann improvisen.
Packet tanzen a parsha. Das noch mit sein bis in tanzen. Das sind die Rikudim. So für it's all was darf for the Elam, und danach darf was darf for sich. And what gets zusammen, and what gets zusammen. Sometimes you can do it together with the Elam, and sometimes you have to do it for yourself. So do it for yourself. Forget about everybody else, as you say. After everybody else is ugly and everybody else is happy and they gone home, you go home also. There's a wegstellen and dan tanzen a parsha. And forget about everything else. And that's taka. Man nimmt an die Simcha von Simchas Torah and the joys. Yeah, Chaim, Yossi, we love you.
Chaim. Laat me alleen